9 spine-chilling tales you must never whistle about in the haunted Appalachian Mountains. The tales of Hollow Creek wrapped the town in a sense of dread. There were whispers about the mountains that twisted your heart and turned your blood to ice. The children knew to tuck themselves in early, terrified of the things that stirred in the night. What was once peaceful now felt ominous. Yesterday, the woods were just woods. Today, they were dark caverns hiding ancient secrets. And in Hollow Creek, the #1 rule: don't whistle at night. Sarah, a single mom to Timmy and Emma, felt the pressure. It was their life, balancing bills and school, all while navigating the growing fear that wrapped its claws around their home. The mountains loomed, majestic yet foreboding, and it was there, in her late grandmother's attic, that Sarah stumbled upon a tattered journal filled with ominous warnings. The pages whispered secrets of evil spirits, curses, and especially the perils of whistling. So many had dismissed the warnings, but then they vanished one by one. At first, everything felt ordinary. Neighbors would nod as she passed by, and the laughter of children echoed through the yards. But that familiar night air soon twisted. Flickering lights became a nightmare. Dark figures danced just beyond the window. Sarah would lie awake, her heart racing, every creak of the house sounding like a sinister whisper. Timmy would ask about the monsters. Emma would bury herself under the covers. It felt suffocating. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Timmy's exploration of a hidden cave ignited Sarah's fears. "It's just a cave, Mom." He laughed, innocent to the lurking darkness. But whispers followed her son, reminding her of what she had read. Shadows danced behind hollow eyes, and the very air thickened with dread. Each day, more families were gripped by despair. Friends turned suspicious, voices filled with hushed tones behind closed doors. Kindness twisted to something else entirely, fueling her paranoia. The rumors about people disappearing clawed at her worst fears. If no one believed her, who could she trust? They said Mr. Collins, the history teacher who spun tales of the mountains with a charming grin, could help. Maybe he would unlock the secrets of the very folklore that now haunted her. But she felt the weight of those gazes, and bearing down on her like the heaviness of a shroud. With each passing night, as sleep eluded her, the whispers grew louder. "What if I whistle?" she thought, echoing the tales. The thought turned her stomach to knots. Standing at the mouth of the cave, gripping the journal, she questioned what was waiting for her inside. What if the legends were true? As her breath quickened, a chilling whisper echoed back her thoughts. Whistling leads to ruin. In that silence, she felt a new sense of urgency. She was at the edge of where the comfort of home met dreadful uncertainty. Would she uncover the truth before it was too late, or would the curse of the mountain consume everything she loved? The cave stood like a gaping mouth, waiting to swallow any light that dared to venture inside. Sarah hesitated, glancing back at the woods that loomed behind her, dark and menacing. The trees whispered a warning she couldn't ignore. With a deep breath, she stepped inside, the air turning cold and stale around her. The beam of her flashlight danced across the jagged walls, illuminating what looked like ancient markings carved into the stone. Each symbol seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, and as she leaned closer, a cold shiver ran down her spine. "What on earth are you?" she muttered, her voice sounding alien in the silence. "Something you don't want to know," a voice echoed back, chilling her to the bone. She whipped around, her heart racing in a wild drumbeat. Nothing but shadows. Timmy had said the cave was just a cave, But to Sarah, it felt alive, as if it were drawing in her fears. She thought of the journal. What if it was more than just a warning? What if it was a curse? Anxiety twisted in her gut, nauseating her. "Mom?" Timmy's voice came from behind her, filled with innocent curiosity. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "What are you doing in there?" "Stay back," she snapped, then immediately regretted her harsh tone. Timmy's wide eyes and trembling lip pierced through her panic. I'm just looking around," she added, forcing a smile that felt painfully stretched. "But the neighbor says it's haunted," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder, as if the shadows were alive. "It's just stories," she said, trying to convince herself as much as him. But the distant echoes from the cave felt loaded with truth. Timmy crept closer, and her caution turned to dread. The deeper they ventured, the more the air hummed with tension, as if something was awake inside the walls. Suddenly, there was a rustle from deeper within, a sound like claws scraping against rock. Sarah grabbed Timmy's hand tightly, a cold bead of sweat trickling down her back. "We should go," she urged, but her son tugged away. "Wait! I want to see!" His wide eyes gleamed with childish fascination, oblivious to the terror clawing at her insides. Before she could respond, Timmy began to whistle an innocent, cheerful tune that cut through the tense air like a knife. The sound echoed, bouncing off the walls, plunging them both into an eerie harmony with the cave's ominous hum. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows deepened and twisted, forming grotesque shapes along the walls. A chill enveloped them, and the scraped noise grew louder, closer. "Timmy, stop!" she screamed, dread washing over her as the whispers returned, frantic and urgent. "Get back here!" But it was too late. The moment he whistled, a guttural roar reverberated through the cave, sending a ripple of panic down her spine. The sound was wrong. It sounded like a warning, or perhaps a promise of something sinister. "Mom!" Timmy cried, his face paling as he stumbled backward, fear taking root in his heart. "Run!" Sarah grabbed his arm and pulled him towards the exit, but the darkness shifted behind them, blocking their path. Deep shadows stirred, and an unearthly force pressed against them, pushing them deeper into the cave's embrace. With every step they took, it felt like the cave itself was trying to pull them apart, whispering secrets of lost souls and endless night. As they neared what seemed to be an exit, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The very walls of the cave echoed with laughter, low and malevolent. "Mom, I'm scared," Timmy cried, and as they emerged from the cave's mouth, stumbling back into the safety of the night air, Sarah glanced back. The cave now loomed silent, dark as though nothing had changed. But she felt it, the echo of laughter, mocking them, visible only in the shadows. "I can't whistle, Timmy," she said, holding her breath. "You must promise me." The weight of the mountain felt heavier now. She had crossed a line, and the danger was growing. What had they awakened? What would come for them next? The next few days were a blur. Time folded in on itself as Sarah tried to shake off the cave's darkness clinging to her thoughts. Timmy was restless. She could see the flicker of curiosity in his eyes every time he mentioned the cave. He felt invincible, unaware of the horror lurking just beneath the surface. "Can we go again, Mom?" he asked one evening, his excitement sharp against the dull weight of dread that settled on Sarah's shoulders. "No," she replied, voice firmer than her resolve. "That place is dangerous. We don't know what it is, or what it can do. But I want to know." Timmy's face was flushed with frustration. He understand. How could he? She couldn't even understand herself, trapped in her own spirals of fear and disbelief. That night, she tossed and turned, visions of twisted shadows danced in her mind. The laughter. It echoed louder, like a taunt in her subconscious. She sat up in bed, drenched in sweat, the echoes weaving in and out like the whispers from the cave. The next morning, an unease spread through the quiet house that felt almost tangible. As she prepared breakfast, the floor creaked beneath her bare feet. Timmy hardly touched his cereal, eyes glazed over, staring into nothingness. Just to break the thick atmosphere, Sarah casually announced, "Let South go to the park today." Timmy blinked, his gaze snapping to hers. "Can we go to the woods?" "No, Timmy," she said, her stomach churning. "Let South stick to the park. It's safer there." Disappointment crossed his face, but quickly morphed into something else, defiance. "I don't want to play at the park. I want to go to the cave." The pit in Sarah's stomach sank deeper. "It's South, not an amusement park, Timmy. It's haunted," he finished, a glimmer of excitement in his voice. Her stomach nodded. "We don't say that word. We don't talk about that." The day dragged on, tension coiling tighter around her. The haunted woods and forbidden whispers loomed over their mundane routine like an impending storm. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was a neighbor, a worried tone in their voice. "Sarah, have you seen Mr. Jennings?" the woman asked. "He went hiking last night, never came back. We're worried he went into that cave." She felt the blood drain from her face. All the park and cave plans washed away. "No, I haven't seen him. I'll let you know if I do." The call ended, and panic pulsed in waves. She tried not to let her play with thoughts of the cave. But Mr. Jennings was the first. Timmy was playing alone in the living room, his toys scattered around him. It struck her how fragile the normalcy felt. She approached him, kneeling to meet his curious gaze. "Promise me you won't whistle today." "Why not?" His innocence only deepened her fear. "Just don't." Later that evening, when dusk settled and shadows stretched like fingers reaching toward the house, a sharp knock on the door startled her. Her heart raced as she opened it to find the woman again, her eyes wide and desperate. "Sarah, we should all go searching. People are hearing whispers near the old cave. It's getting worse." "Whispers?" Sarah echoed, heart pounding. "No, it can't be." "It is. You've heard them too, haven't you? Like laughter?" The sound crept back into her head, a chilling reminder of the darkness below. Suddenly, Timmy's cheerful whistle pierced the thick atmosphere, piercing through the chuckling shadows. The woman's face went pale. No. Timmy! Stop!" But it was too late. The laughter swelled, drowning out their voices, chilling, echoing through the room. As shadows pulled in the corners, Sarah grabbed Timmy's hand, dread pooling in her gut once more. "Run!" she screamed, knowing deep down that the laughter had returned. What was awakening now? What would they have to face this time? The house felt wrong as they bolted through the door, shadows stretching and warping in the dimming light. Sarah could feel the pressure of the laughter thickening around them, almost solid, pressing down. She glanced back just once, seeing the terrified face of the woman, her mouth opening in a silent scream as the room darkened. "Mom! What is happening?" Timmy's voice quivered, panic rising like bile in her throat. "Just keep running," she yelled, urging him forward, her heartbeat hammering in rhythm with their frantic footsteps. They dashed past the old oak that loomed over their yard, the branches swaying violently, as if trying to break free. Sarah's mind raced. Thoughts of Mr. Jennings flooded in, and the real horror of the cave gripped her. What had it done to him? They reached the end of the yard, the heightening twilight making everything feel alive, the rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of the woods becoming menacing. "Where do we go?" Timmy asked, his small hand trembling in hers. "Anywhere but here," Sarah gasped, her breath hitching. "To the Whitaker's cabin. Maybe they can help us." The path wound deeper into the woods, tangling itself like a web woven by unseen hands. Each step felt like an invitation to the unseen force behind them. The laughter came in waves now, rising and falling, a cruel symphony mixed with the rustle of the underbrush. Sarah looked back again. The air felt thick, electric, as if the trees had come alive, anxious to witness what lay ahead. "Mom! Look!" Timmy pointed, his face pale. In the fading light, a figure appeared at the edge of the woods, a silhouette standing eerily still. Sarah's heart plummeted, a cold sweat breaking at her brow. "Stay close to me," she hissed, clenching Timmy's hand tighter as they continued. But the figure didn't move, watching them with an intensity that seared into her skin. Timmy whimpered softly. "It's getting cold." Suddenly, the air around them chilled, and Sarah felt a draft swirl around her ankles, as if a doorway to a darker place had opened. Her instincts kicked in. They needed to get away. "Just keep moving," she urged, forcing her legs to carry them faster. Then came the whispers, weaving around them like a storm, words incomprehensible yet undeniably sinister. "Timmy, cover your ears," she shouted, but he was already too immersed in the madness swelling around them. "Mom, make it stop," he wailed, his face frozen in fear. As she turned to protect him from the chaos growing thicker, she felt it, a cold grip around her ankle, pulling her down. "Sarah!" Timmy screamed as she stumbled, desperately grasping at the earth, but being dragged toward the darkness, where the figure lingered just out of reach. With every ounce of strength, she yanked herself free, her fingers clawing at the ground, and pulled Timmy up, heart pounding violently. "Run, Timmy! Do not look back!" But as they ran, the whispers morphed into laughter, bubbling like dark water beneath them. Shadows danced, flickering alive. The woods trembled, and the once familiar path twisted into unfamiliar territory. "Is it you?" a voice echoed, somber and chilling, like the weight of grief. It emerged from the darkness, radiating malicious curiosity, and it was now closer than ever. Without thinking, she shouted, "It wasn't us. We didn't want to go back." An icy breeze swept over her, sending shivers down her spine. The laughter morphed again, sharp and mocking, and then suddenly, everything went quiet. Except for their panting breaths, Timmy turned to her wide-eyed. "Mom, are we safe now?" "Not yet," she whispered, feeling the pull of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. The silence held a tension that felt like it could snap. Then the ground beneath them shook slightly, and the world tilted. Something breathed, deep and menacing, a reminder that whatever was in the darkness was finished with them. "Run! Now!" she screamed, and as they turned, a chill swept through the air, whispering an almost familiar tune, beckoning them back toward the cave. What awaited them there, beyond those echoing shadows? What truth awaited in the depths? They sprinted through the trees, branches clawing at them as they fled. Each step splashed in the damp earth sent a tremor through Sarah's spine. The forest felt alive, its whispers growing louder, wrapping around them like a predator closing in on its prey. Timmy's small hand felt like a lifeline as she tightened her grip, his frantic breaths cutting through the thickening tension. "Mom, I'm scared," Timmy said, voice trembling as they stumbled over roots and rocks. "Where are we going?" "The cabin. Just keep going." She pushed her legs harder, heart racing, though her mind screamed to turn back. The shadowy figure loomed in her memory, the laughter echoing louder still, teasing her sanity. And then there was another sound, thumping, a rhythmic pounding that matched their own heartbeats. Sarah stopped abruptly, pulling Timmy close behind a massive, gnarled tree. She squinted into the darkness, straining to see if it was just her imagination, but it wasn't. In the depths of the woods, dim moonlight glinted off eyes that glowed from the brush. She held her breath, realizing they weren't alone any longer. The thumping continued, almost like footsteps, sparse yet deliberate. Each beat made the leaves shiver, an unsettling dance of nature that felt wrong. "Mom, I see it," Timmy whispered, pointing. She glanced in the direction he gestured but held back a gasp. What she saw sent chills coursing through her veins. More figures were emerging, distorted shapes gliding through the trees, their forms indistinct but undeniably real. They seemed to sway as they moved, blending seamlessly with the shadows, their eyes fixated on her and Timmy. "Run!" Another pulse of panic surged through her. They tore away from the tree, ignoring the cacophony that roared in their ears. With each frantic dash, the woodland seemed to stretch ahead of them, twisting further into a maze of terror. Limbs reached out, brushing against their skin as if testing their resolve. The laughter rose, infecting the air with a sense of impending doom. "Mom, they're coming!" Timmy screamed, and Sarah felt the weight of dread anchor itself in her stomach. She could feel it, the shadows crawling closer, almost hungry. A short distance away, the silhouette of the Whitaker-esque cabin emerged, a beacon of fragile hope amidst the chaos. "Over there." She pointed, relief flooding through her, but it quickly turned to horror as she saw movement erupt from behind the trees. The figures weren't just watching anymore. They were closing in, gliding effortlessly, like smoke weaving through the underbrush. Sarah urged Timmy forward, but the air thickened. Every step felt like it was taking them deeper into the abyss. Just 10 more yards, but something grabbed her from behind, icy fingers wrapping around her wrist. She screamed, yanking hard as Timmy shouted, "Mom!" For a fleeting moment time froze. She could feel the cold seep into her very bones, stealing her strength. Mustering all her will, she twisted free, heart racing wildly. "We have to go. Now! Don't look back. Don't look back." The mantra blared in her mind, but instinct had other ideas. As they sprinted toward the cabin, she couldn't resist. A quick glance confirmed her fears. They were right there. The glowing eyes, the featureless faces, they watched her with an intensity that left no room for doubt. They were no longer just shadows, but something far more sinister. "Get to the cabin!" she roared, taking Timmy's hand, pulling him ahead. As they crossed the threshold, Sarah slammed the door shut, heart racing as she leaned against it. Sweat dripped down her forehead. For a moment, silence enveloped them, broken only by their harsh breaths. Then came the whispers, light and taunting, echoing against the wooden walls. "You think you're safe, but you left something behind." The cabin seemed alive around them, the walls pulsing almost as if it were breathing. "What did we leave?" Timmy's voice shook in the stillness, a question she wished she could answer. The whispers grew louder, mingling with the thumping again now inside the cabin. Whatever was out there, it hadn't given up. They weren't safe yet. What had they unwittingly summoned by fleeing? Something darker loomed, waiting. Sarah's heart sank as the realization hit. What if the dark figures were only the beginning? "I don't want to find out," she whispered, shaking with dread, but fate had other plans. The door quaked violently. "Mom, they're coming in!" Timmy cried, his face pale. And as Sarah backed away from the door, a chilling thought flashed in her mind. What if this wasn't just a fight for escape, but a fight to survive an ancient curse? The shadows stirred once more, and she braced herself for what would come next. The cabin trembled under the force of whatever was outside. Sarah could hear the whispering voices merge into a cacophony, shrill laughter slicing through her resolve. The door bounced against the frame, splintering the thin wood. With a quick glance at Timmy, she saw sheer panic etched across his small face, wide eyes filled with fear. "Stay here," she whispered fiercely, even as doubt gnawed at her confidence. She had to protect Timmy. She had to find a way out. A racing heartbeat filled her ears, drumming along with the relentless thumping outside. Each beat vibrated through the floorboards, as if the very cabin were a part of the madness trying to break in. Panic surged within her. She couldn't let them in. Not now, not ever. "What should we do?" Timmy asked, his small voice shaking, quaking like fragile leaves in an autumn storm. "Shh. Just listen," Sarah urged, straightening up. She could hear them now, the shadows outside whispering to each other, the sinister timbre of their voices curling around her like smoke. "We have to stay quiet. They can't know we're here." The whispers gathered strength, growing louder until it felt like a chant, a song of old that resonated through the bones of the cabin. "You're trapped, you've awakened us, you cannot escape." Cold dread tightened in her stomach. What had they awakened? Suddenly, the door rattled again, with a force that sent shivers down her spine. The voices outside escalated, a menacing chorus that proclaimed their hunger, their wrath. Sarah glanced back at the small window, knowing it wouldn't be a wise move, but curiosity clawed at her. Timmy's hands tightened around her arm. "Mom, don't. Please don't look." But she had to know. She pushed aside the curtain just enough to peek through. The shadowy figures moved in a graceful, horrifying dance, their elongated limbs stretching unnaturally in the moonlight so that they looked almost fish-like, bodies glimmering with an otherworldly gleam. They swayed and twisted, their eyes still locked onto the cabin, waiting. Then, one of them leaned closer, revealing something, an impossibly wide grin devoid of features aside from sharp, glistening teeth. It held a dark shape in its hand, something squirming, writhing in pain. The sight ripped a scream from her throat, but before she could react, the door splintered again, strong, determined, unyielding. Sarah turned to Timmy, panic igniting in her eyes. "We have to find a way out now." Without another moment of hesitation, she grabbed his hand and darted toward the back of the cabin. Hasty breaths echoed between them, the threat outside only heightening their urgency. As they burst through a side door leading to the cramped, shadowy interior of another room, a gust of wind followed them, almost mocking their desperation. Dust swirled, particles catching the dim light, and Sarah's heart raced as she saw a staircase leading down into darkness. "Mom, where does that go?" Timmy peered back at her, fear pooling in his voice. "I don't know, but it might be our only chance." She pulled him closer, her own heart thudding a primal rhythm that drowned out the whispers outside. They descended the staircase, each step echoing through the dark, and the air grew cold like a winter chill. Shadows danced against the walls, flickering to life at the edges of her vision. The thumping grew louder above them, like feet pounding a funeral march. With every step deeper into the abyss, dread pulled in her gut. What if they were heading into the lair of whatever hunted them? What if the darkness around wasn't just the absence of light, but something more sinister, waiting patient and hungry? "Mom." Timmy's tiny voice broke through her racing thoughts. "What if it's a trap?" A moment of silence hung heavy between them. "We have to keep moving," Sarah whispered fiercely, more to convince herself than him. They had no real choice. But as they reached the bottom, she caught sight of a flickering light in the distance. A weak glow pulsated like a heartbeat, and a sense of foreboding wrapped itself around her throat, choking her resolve. "Stay. Close," she commanded, knowing that whatever was waiting for them down there could be worse than what they had escaped above. The whispers faded to an unsettling hush, but the thumping grew nearer. They were being hunted, but by what? With Timmy holding tightly to her hand, Sarah hesitated, dread curling around her spine. She had to decide. To turn back and face the shadows, or to push forward into the unknown. But as the pulsing light drew closer, one question took root in her mind. What if they weren't the only ones who sought the light? And just as they stepped into the light, it flickered out. The darkness swallowed them whole, wrapping tight like a suffocating cloak. Sarah felt her breath hitch in her throat. Panic clawed at her chest. It was no longer just the whispers above, or the thumping assaulting the cabin. Here, the silence was stifling, oppressive, a heavy weight pressing down on them. "Mom?" Timmy's voice trembled, breaking the silence, echoing like a nail on wood. "What happened to the light?" "I don't know," she whispered, her own voice cracking under the strain. She squinted into the void, searching for any sign of a way out, of a flicker of light. Just when despair threatened to swallow her whole, a faint shimmer reappeared, this time more diffuse, like a spectral wisp bouncing in the darkness. Sarah felt drawn to it, a moth to flame. "Let us go," she urged, moving forward, her heart racing. Each footfall sent a shudder through the wooden steps. What lay ahead, she hardly dared to imagine, but she felt it something watching them, something with eyes that pierced through the dark. She could sense the shift in the air, charged with malice, as if it hungered for them. "Mom, I don't like this," Timmy whined, instinctively pressing closer to her side. His small fingers were ice against her skin. Just a little farther she breathed, trying to steady her own growing panic. But dread tinged her words. The pulse of the light grew stronger as they moved, almost beckoning them forward. They stepped into a chamber illuminated by flickering phosphorescence that painted the walls with ghostly figures. Twisted shapes wove in and out of sight, almost like they were alive. This wasn't just a basement. It was a crypt, a den of horrors crafted from shadows and whispers. "Mom!" Timmy gasped, stepping back. "What is that?" Sarah followed his gaze. A figure emerged from the shadows of the far wall. It was tall and gaunt, with limbs that seemed too long, too thin, barely more than shadows strung together. Its head twisted in an unnatural way, grinning wide like the creature outside, teeth sharp and glistening in the dark. "Run!" Sarah whispered, urging Timmy backward as the figure took a step toward them, the grin stretching wider, more sinister. They turned in tandem, scrambling back the way they had come, but the darkness thickened, wrapping around them like a living thing. The thumping above was now a distant memory, overshadowed by the relentless pulse of something deep in the earth. "Mom!" Timmy screamed as they skidded to a stop. The way back was gone. No staircase, no opening, just impenetrable night, and the oppressive feeling of eyes on them, wavering in the shadows. The creature's laughter echoed through the chamber, a hollow sound, like wind through a broken window. It resonated in her bones, twisting her stomach. "Please, no!" Timmy cried, tears spilling down his cheeks. They were trapped, ensnared by forces they didn't understand. No escape, only the looming shadow of what was still to come. The chamber shuddered, walls vibrating with that laughter as the light pulsed erratically, casting grotesque reflections that warped their surroundings into a twisted funhouse. Sarah, a hiss slithered through the air, chilling her to the core. You shouldn't have come here. What once was just a thought now solidified into cold dread. Who were they? What had they awakened? Footfalls echoed, converging from all sides. A plan formed in her mind, a desperate chance, the only chance. "Timmy, listen to me." She knelt down, urgency flooding her voice. "We're going to run the other way. Don't look back, no matter what you hear. You have to trust me." With his small nod, she felt the weight of resolve settle between them. Together, they would face whatever haunted this hellish abode or die trying. Yet, as they prepared to sprint, the laughter grew louder, more chaotic. In a chilling moment of clarity, Sarah realized this was merely the beginning. What if there are more? Timmy whispered, feet trembling but his courage flickering. And just as she turned to answer, the dark enveloped them again, forcing her to wonder if the light ever truly existed. With a final echo of laughter trailing behind them, they burst forth into the unseen, the true horror just beginning to unfold. The air around them crackled with a sinister energy. As they stumbled forward into the obscurity, Sarah's breath came in short gasps. The laughter, that unsettling chaos, echoed in their minds, taunting them, reminding them of their powerlessness. Timmy squeezed her hand, his tiny fingers trembling. "Mom, I don't want to die here, neither do I, sweetheart," she whispered, forcing words out as the darkness loomed ahead. Desperation clawed at her, and instinct kicked in. They moved deeper into the chamber, their hurried footsteps muffled by the thick, rotting carpet that covered the ground. The light faded as it had appeared, leaving them enveloped in a swirling abyss of despair. Shadows shifted around them, seeming to reach out with unseen hands, brushing against her arms like cold breath. "Mom?" Timmy's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, a sharp reminder of her responsibility. "What if it finds us?" "It won't," she lied, trying to reassure him while her gut twisted. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were bait in a deadly game, the quarry of malevolent eyes lurking in the shadows. Then she remembered the creature's malicious laughter. Was it alone? Suddenly, there was a stirring in the faint light left behind, a flicker that danced hesitantly. Sarah darted toward it, dragging Timmy along even as her instincts screamed to turn around. The flicker transformed into multiple pinpricks of light. The hope of an exit ignited a fire deep within her. "Look, Timmy!" she exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement and fear all tangled together. Maybe there's a way out. But the moment of hope quickly twisted to ash in her mouth when a horrid rasp echoed from the darkness. Escape? The fun's just starting. They skidded to a stop, the lights before them morphing into pale, ghostly faces with hollow eyes, trapped souls swimming in despair. They floated, their expressions contorted into silent screams. Sarah's heart dropped. This wasn't a path to freedom, but a trap made of agony and demise. "Mom, please!" Timmy cried as the lights flickered and dimmed. "I want to go home." The whispers surrounded them, gnawing at her sanity. "Help us," they moaned, voices warped with sorrow. "Free us, break the curse." "No," Sarah shouted, fear propelling her retreat. "We can't help you." But she didn't know what she was running from nor toward. She could only run. Timmy dampened his sobs as they turned, only to find that the shadows had thickened, narrowing their escape like a predator cornering its prey. "Mom!" Timmy's cry tore at her heart, but there was no time for regrets. He pulled away, enchanted by the ghostly visages. "No!" With a surge of panic, she lunged to grasp his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Come with me!" Just as she tugged him back, a shadow lunged forward from the darkness, blocking their path. It was the gaunt figure again, closer, its grin impossibly wide. Sarah froze, instincts fighting against her will to flee. The face was distorted, fluid, and hair hung like dripping tar, revealing glimpses of deadened skin underneath. "Leave the boy at rest," the echo of its voice, a thousand voices weeping for freedom, "and I'll let you go never." Sarah yelled, her heart pounding against her rib cage. The dread of losing Timmy was worse than any fate it could offer. But then came the shattering sound of something cracking behind them. The walls themselves were closing in. She could sense their panic, the room tightening like a noose. "Mom!" "The lights!" Timmy shouted, pointing back toward the twisted faces, now screaming for her attention. With terror fueling her, Sarah withdrew, edging backward. The gaunt figure inched closer, and she shook her head in defiance. "Let him go. We're leaving." But the shadows surged, and the laughter from all around amplified, drowning out her thoughts, clawing at her resolve. The memory of those ghostly faces burned in her mind, and a chilling realization gripped her. As they swerved to escape, a low growl rumbled beneath the floor. The stone trembled beneath their feet, and with every heartbeat, Sarah felt the ground shift. Something was awakening, something bigger and far more terrifying than they had ever imagined. "Mom? What is happening?" Timmy cried, his voice small against the chaos. "I don't know, Timmy, but we need to go now." As they turned to run, the echoes of despair, laughter, and something primal filled the air around them, a symphony of terror closing in. And right then, she understood. Every step they took led them deeper. Deeper into the horrors of a darkness that hungered for more. Would they truly find a way out, or would the darkness claim them as its next victims? They bolted, hearts racing, driven by the primal instinct to survive. The shadows swelled around them like dark waves, threatening to swallow them whole. Sarah's mind raced. Each breath she took felt heavy, each heartbeat a countdown to disaster. "Mom, don't let go." Timmy's voice cracked, desperation seeping into every syllable. He clutched her hand tighter, as if sure that the force of his grip could somehow pull them back from the brink of doom. "I won't, I promise," she gasped, forcing her trembling legs to move faster. But the further they ran, the more the shadows pressed in, stretching and morphing into grotesque shapes. For a moment, she thought she saw familiar faces, twisted in agony, reaching out. Was it her imagination or grim manifestations of those lost souls trapped in that darkness? "Where do we go?" Timmy panted, glancing back over his shoulder as panic filled his wide eyes. "Mom, I can't see anything." In that moment, the laughter surged again, its mocking tone slicing through her resolve. "There's no escape, dear Sarah," it echoed, every syllable dripping with malice. She stumbled, the darkness swallowing her senses, as confusion wrapped around her like a stranglehold. "Keep your eyes on me," Sarah urged, forcing her focus back onto their path. But the laughter twisted, morphing into whispers that slithered into her ears, making her doubt her own memories, her instincts. "Mom!" Timmy cried again, and this time fear cracked her heart. For an instant, she caught a glimpse of the gaunt figure, watching from the shadows, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. She turned hard, veering left down a narrow passageway that seemed to extend into infinity. The walls pressed tighter, the air thicker, and she felt it, the thing in the dark, lurking and waiting, ready to snatch them both away. "Mom, please!" Timmy begged, his little feet struggling to keep up. Every second felt like a stolen breath, a tiny flicker of life draining into the abyss. "Faster, baby!" Just a little faster. She kept pushing, determination fueling her movements, but each step felt heavier, dragging her down into the darkness that seemed to spiral endlessly below. Suddenly, the passage opened into a vast chamber, illuminated by a grotesque light that twisted every shadow around them. Symbols scrawled in a harsh, black language lined the walls, pulsating like a heart about to explode. Sarah froze, recognizing the markings, the same she had seen in nightmares, connecting to a realm of horrors that danced just outside her understanding. "This is bad, this is so bad," she whispered, dread consuming her. Timmy clutched her tighter, trembling against her side, as he peered into the unnatural illumination. "Look!" he gasped, pointing toward the center of the chamber, where a pulsating mass churned, dark and viscous, like tar. It writhed and squirmed, and within it were faces, thousands of them, each one mouthing silent screams. "No!" Sarah shouted, realizing they had stepped into a terrible enigma, a heart of darkness that pulsed with the pain of the damned. Something in her stirred, awakened by terror, revealing a hidden truth. What if this was the origin of the laughter? The torment? "Mom, we need to go." "Please!" Timmy's plea shook her from her daze. A low growl echoed through the chamber, vibrating the ground beneath their feet. "Run!" she commanded, grabbing his hand. But as they turned, the darkness shifted again, vehemently reshaping itself into figures, the gaunt specters closing in, eyes wide and desperate. "Join us," they whispered, an offer heavily laced with dread. "You can't fight it, you were always meant to be here." With a scream swelling in her throat, Sarah dashed to the left, her instincts taking over. She didn't look back, weaving through the mass of darkness that pulled at her like a poisonous tide. "Mom!" Timmy's breath hitched, and in that moment, she felt the abyss beckoning her son. The shadows reached, hungry, and Sarah could feel their cold fingers brushing against her legs. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the chamber, momentarily illuminating their path. For the briefest of moments, She saw a door, a solid barrier against the oncoming storm. But would they reach it before the shadows swallowed them whole? Hold on tight, she screamed, pushing forward as the sound of their frantic footsteps clashed against hollering echoes. Then came the horrifying realization. The laughter was not just a tormentor, it was a guide, leading them deeper into the heart of despair. And as they raced toward the light, Sarah felt the very core of her being shake with terror, not just for herself, but for what lay behind them, waiting. Would the door hold? Or would they be consumed by the shadows they could not outrun? The shadows flickered like a dying flame as Sarah and Timmy sprinted toward the pulsing light. Each step felt heavier, enveloped by the grasp of despair that threatened to drag them back into the dark abyss. The laughter echoed in their ears, manic and mocking, as if the very darkness was taunting them for daring to flee. "Mom, what if we don't make it?" Timmy's voice cracked with fear, his small grip tightening around her hand. "We have to believe we will," she shouted, filling her voice with a determination she didn't entirely feel. The door loomed ahead, solid and promising, but shadows reached for them, extending their cold fingers into the space between. "Faster," she urged, adrenaline pouring into her veins. Dread clawed at her heart, picturing the gaunt figure closing in behind them, ready to snatch them away. Just as they neared the door, it surged open, and a figure stood silhouetted against the blinding light. Mr. Collins, the history teacher. Relief flooded through her, mixing with disbelief. "Get inside, quickly," he shouted, urgency lacing his tone. Without a second thought, Sarah grabbed Timmy's hand and dashed through the threshold, pulling him behind her as the door slammed shut with an earth-shattering boom. Inside, the light was unbearable, pure and blinding. It washed over them, lifting the oppressive weight of darkness from their shoulders. Sarah surveyed their surroundings, breathing in the sheer difference. They stood in a circular room that felt alive, etched with warm golden light, the pulse of joy and safety enveloping them like a protective blanket. What is this place?" Timmy asked, his voice tremulous but filled with a glimmer of hope. "This is the sanctuary," Mr. Collins explained, his eyes wide with urgency. "You found the heart of the mountain. It's a place of healing but also of immense power. The shadows can't follow you here. But the laughter, they're out there," Sarah breathed, still catching her breath. "What do we do now?" "Now, we must close the doorway," Mr. Collins replied, gesturing toward an ancient-looking inscription on the wall. "It's the only way to protect ourselves from what you've disturbed. The mountain holds ancient spirits, restless, angry." "Spirits?" Timmy echoed. "Scary ones?" Collins nodded solemnly. "If the door remains ajar, they'll unleash their wrath upon both worlds." As he began to chant, Sarah felt a surge of energy flow through her. The room vibrated, resonating with a warmth she hadn't known she needed. Timmy clutched her leg, peering up at her with wide, trusting eyes. "What if they come in?" he asked, fear flickering again. "They can't, not if we do this right," she promised. "Stay close, all right." The chanting intensified, and she watched as the air seemed to shimmer with the weight of ages. It felt both terrifying and beautiful, ancient wisdom woven into every note. The walls glowed, and the shadows that had once haunted them skittered away in the face of the radiant light. Suddenly, a deafening roar reverberated through the room. The shadows surged against the door, writhing like snakes eager to escape. "Keep going. You have to believe," Collins urged, his voice strained as he poured every ounce of his power into sealing the opening. "Mom," Timmy's voice broke through her panic, "will it work?" "It has to work," she yelled, glancing over her shoulder at the swirling forms outside. "Please let it work." A bone-rattling crack sounded as the door shifted ominously, shadows pushing harder against its edges. With one final blast of energy, Collins shouted the final incantation, the words echoing like thunder. Light burst forth, enveloping everything in its brilliance, consuming the shadows until they dissolved into wisps of nothingness. The pressure slowly lifted, and the room settled into a profound silence. Sarah felt weightless. They were safe, that much she knew. Timmy's small voice broke through the quiet, trembling with awe. "Did we really do it?" Collins lowered his hands, panting but smiling with relief. "Yes. The shadows cannot reach you here. You have banished them back to their realm." Tears of relief stung Sarah's eyes as she pulled Timmy close, embracing him fiercely. "We did it together," she murmured, and they held each other as the gravity of their survival settled over them. "But what now?" Timmy asked, glancing nervously at Collins. "That's the beauty of it," Collins replied, regaining his composure. "You two have shown immense courage. Now, you will carry the knowledge that can protect this town from those who would disturb the mountain once more." In that moment, the air buzzed with newfound hope, echoing a promise of safety and strength. They had faced the shadows and emerged stronger together. As they prepared to leave the sanctuary, Sarah glanced back at Mr. Collins, gratitude filling her heart. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling like they had crossed an invisible threshold. "Just remember," he replied, a twinkle in his eye, "courage can turn the tide, and every story has the power to change our world." With Timmy by her side, they stepped into the light, leaving the haunted tales of Hollow Creek behind them, carrying the lessons learned from darkness into a future filled with endless possibilities. Don't let this journey end here. You need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and share the thrill of this adventure with others. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. Your thoughts matter so much. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support keeps this channel alive, and only true fans know the importance of spreading the word.